Hi guys, I hope your week has been going well for you so far and that you're enjoying your summer break, even though you obviously can't do the maybe normal things you would do over summer break. I hope you're still having a wonderful time. Today I'd like for us to think about what it means for something to be impossible. What comes to your mind? There's plenty of things as we go through life and as you guys grow older, there'll be times that you face situations where you may think that it's impossible for this to work out or there's no way that that can happen. And sometimes to us as humans, things do look impossible. But I like to look today at how can we face those seemingly impossible situations and what do we do about it. To start with, I want you to think about some things that are impossible. Just think about it for a little bit. And then if there's anyone watching this video with you, take some time and share with each other what you think is an impossible situation. If we look at the dictionary, what it calls impossible, the dictionary basically says that impossible is not able to occur, exist, or be done. In other words, we can't do it. It's humanly not possible to be done. It's an impossible task. Maybe you're assigned some assignment at school and it may seem huge and you may think this is impossible for me to do it. And sometimes we face situations where it really is impossible for us as humans to do it on our own. And we'll look at how we can face those impossible situations a little later on. What I'd like to do now is show you just a little bit of an object lesson. I guess you could also call it a magic trick a little bit, but something that will bring out the point of what it means when we face impossible situations. To us as humans it may look impossible, but when we trust in God, it isn't. Okay, so for our object lesson, or like I had said, you could also call it a magic trick. What I have here is 3 pieces of paper. I've got a green paper, a purple paper, and obviously a pink paper as well. And I also have a $1 bill. Now, if I would just come up to you and tell you that I can take this $1 bill and just while I'm holding it here, boom, turn it into a $10 bill, I'm pretty sure that you will tell me that's impossible. And you're right. It is impossible. I cannot turn this $1 bill holding it here, boom, into a $10 bill. But what do you think would happen if I put it in here, fold everything up all nicely? Think anything will happen? Let's find out. We'll fold up our $1 bill all nicely, stick it in there, fold that up. As you can see, no $10 bill there. Still just a $1 bill in there. Fold this all up. And as you can see, no $10 bill there. And then we'll fold this all up nicely yet as well. And there it is. There's our little envelope. Guess you could call it a magic envelope if you want to. But now that we've given it some time, let's open it back up and see if anything happened. And there you have it. A $10 bill. So maybe it is possible to turn a $1 bill into a $10 bill. I'm pretty sure though you would still tell me that that's not possible. You did some kind of trick. And you're right. I'll let you figure out how I did it. But the point I want to bring out with this is that just as it was for you looking at this to begin with, you told me there's no way it's possible that I can get a $10 bill out of there. Out of that $1 bill anyway. And it's the same way when we're facing situations in life that look impossible. Sometimes it just doesn't seem like there's any way out. But the important thing to remember is that with God, nothing is impossible. God can do anything. Us as humans, No, we can't just do anything. We are limited, but God is not. God created each one of us. There is no limit to God's power, and that's the important thing to remember. Now, we'll look at some more details on how do we go about. Yeah, we know we need to trust God when we face impossible situations in life, but what actually do I do? I mean, we've been often hear that trust God, just trust God. But there's a few just basic steps that I want to share with you guys tonight, and hopefully it's something you can remember so that next time you face an impossible situation, you can take that with you and you can trust in God. Okay, so like I had mentioned earlier during the object lesson, what do we do about impossible situations we face in life? And obviously, I told you that God can do anything impossible. Nothing is impossible for him. He can do anything. But it's important to remember that we can't just know in our head that God can do anything impossible. We actually have to believe it ourselves. We have to have faith that God can do anything impossible. There is a verse in Daniel chapter 3, verse 17 in the Bible that says, "If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king." Now, there's a story behind that verse, and I'll tell you that story, then that verse will make a lot more sense. And this story brings out an excellent point of not just knowing that God can do anything impossible, but actually believing it, because these people faced an actual impossible situation. So the story is that there were three young men who were Israelites, and they were living in Israel at the time when the Babylonian king, who was a little ways off, came and captured quite a bit of the Israelites, and he took them captives. And along with the captives he took, these three young men were taken as well. Well, as time went on, when they got over to Babylon, the king ordered one of his officials that he was supposed to pick out some young men who were good looking, were wise, as possible candidates for maybe a future, today we'd say a government position. And as time went on, the king saw that these three young men were wiser than all the other men that were in his province. And the reason for that was because these three young men had stayed faithful to God. And because of that, God blessed them with wisdom. And anyway, as time went on, one day the king decided that he's going to build this huge statue of himself, and that he's going to order that everyone has to bow down and worship this statue. And that's what he did. He had a big statue built, and then at a certain time and date, he said everyone needs to be there at this place. And then when the music sounds, different instruments are sounded, you guys all need to bow down. And he said that whoever does not bow down to that image of me, the king said, then you will be thrown into a burning fiery furnace that I have made for anyone who does not worship this statue. Well, what were these three young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that was their names, what were they supposed to do? They were Israelites who served the one true God. They didn't serve these other gods. They weren't going to worship and bow down to a statue of the king. But they were there, and the music sounded, and everyone fell down and worshipped this idol, except for those three young men. They did not bow down. They stayed standing right where they were. Well, this did not impress the king, to say the least. He was very angry with them, and he ordered them to come. He taught with them and said, you guys not know that if you don't bow down to this image, I'm going to throw you in that fiery furnace. And he said, I'll give you one more chance, but you better know that you better bow down to that or you're going to get burned alive. And these three young men responded with that verse that I read to you earlier. They said, I'll read it again to you. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. To us as humans, we would say that's impossible. we get thrown into a fiery furnace, we're going to get burned. We're going to die. That's when they didn't know for sure if God was going to save them or not, but they knew and they believed that God could save them from that furnace if that's what God's will was. Well, when they told the king that, it made the king so angry he didn't even give them that second chance. He ordered that furnace to be made 7 times hotter than what it was already. And then he said, throw these 3 young men in there. And so they did. Some of his strong men grabbed these 3 men, threw them into that furnace, and it says that the fire was so hot that the men that threw the 3 young men in there, they all died. And they weren't even in the fire. The heat was so hot that they actually all died from it. Well, the king couldn't believe it when he looked into the furnace. There in that fiery furnace were those 3 young men walking around, and there was a 4th man with them. And that 4th man was God, as Jesus was with them. And the king could not believe it. He said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you guys come out of there. And they did. And it says that not even a single hair on their hand or anywhere was singed. But yet the men that threw these 3 young men in there actually died. But these 3 young men didn't even have any singed hair. Now that's an impossible situation that God only can do. But the important thing was, I believe in there, is that these 3 young men not just knew it, but they believed that God could do it. And that's the first point I want you to remember. Just have faith that God can do anything. The second thing to do about it is when you face impossible situations, pray about it. When you face a situation you're not sure what's going to happen or you don't see a way out, just pray that God would help you through that situation and somehow make a way for things to work out. But the third point that goes right along with praying about it is also submitting to God's will, that whatever happens, regardless how God answers your prayer, even though you may have faith that God can do anything, you believe that God can do the impossible, sometimes God works in ways that we can't always see and we can't always understand. But just know, and this is what I want you to remember if nothing else, just know that just because we sometimes can't see God working out the impossible, trusting God, because God can do anything impossible.